Sonic CD is the third game released in the classic Sonic series, developed in Japan while Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was being developed in America. As a result, Sonic CD has a distinct look and feel, with some fans even declaring this the best of the classic Sonic series. In 2011, Sonic CD was re-released to most digital platforms. Surprisingly, this version is neither emulation nor a port of the original code, but rather a fresh engine built from the ground up to take advantage of modern hardware. The most fundamental change is the widescreen support. The beautiful visuals of Sonic CD now fill an entire 16:9 playfield. This gives you a few extra moments to see incoming enemies and platforms, but somehow still feels very faithful to the original. It has a bigger impact on boss fights, however. In Title Tempest, it is much easier to dodge Eggman's attacks with the additional space on the left and right. Curiously, in the final showdown, barriers are placed in these areas to keep the battle faithful to the original. Like always, Sonic CD has us racing through a colorful world in an attempt to take down Eggman and stop him from his world domination ambitions. Much like the very first Sonic game, the zones alternate between speed-focused and platforming-focused, keeping the game feeling fresh and challenging. The adventure starts in Palm Tree Panic. This first zone is a breathtaking tropical locale with lush greenery and a watery background. The zone plays out like one would expect, but there are new signs scattered throughout, showing past and future. After running past one, you'll have the opportunity to travel into the past or future if you maintain your speed for a set amount of time. When traveling in time, the color palette swaps. Some art assets are changed, the music is different, and actions in the past will change the future. In the past, there is a machine to destroy. If you find it and destroy it, you'll find the future zone is now free of badniks and everything looks happy. This is known as the good future. If you fail to do this and travel to the future, you'll end up in the bad future. It's an interesting gimmick for sure, but is best reserved for the completionist types. The levels are laid out in a way where you can navigate from beginning to end, top to bottom, to find these machines, but the reward of a better game ending isn't really worth it, for me anyway. Alternatively, you can achieve the good ending by gathering the 7 time stones. If you make it to the end of an act with 50 rings, you can jump into a giant ring to enter the special stage. These have been dramatically enhanced for the modern version of Sonic CD, with a smoother frame rate and much better scaling. Unfortunately, these are still tough. You are supposed to break UFOs, but the hit detection is spotty and they are quite elusive. Worse yet, touching the water will drastically reduce the timer. This wouldn't be an issue, but you are forced to make leaps of faith to take out the UFOs. Again, these are not required to beat the game, but collecting all 7 is an alternate way to achieve the good ending. The next zone is Collision Chaos. As alluded to earlier, the zones mostly alternate between speed and platforming, with Collision Chaos being of the platforming variety. There are springs everywhere, and you sort of bounce your way through the act. The lack of structure won't be for everyone, but I find myself enjoying the chaotic nature of the environment. This brings us to Title Tempest. Now, I'm not a huge fan of any of the water zones in classic Sonic games, but Sonic CD's entry is the least obnoxious of them all. The wonky jumping and molasses momentum returns, but the level layouts are more accommodating of the physics, and these acts don't drag on for an eternity. They are a nice diversion, adding some variety to the overall game without ruining the flow. I actually enjoyed them enough to go to the past and seek out Eggman's machines, and for the first time see the good future version of the boss fight. Quartz Quadrant is next, and it becomes obvious the developers worked exceptionally hard to create level names that start with the same consonants. Very clever. This stage has us moving back to a blistering pace, with the sole goal of moving to the right as quickly as possible. Sonic CD does a great job changing up the flow with each new environment, and Quartz Quadrant does a great job reminding us Sonic the Hedgehog can be an insanely fast game. The platforming returns with Wacky Workbench. To be successful here, you need to avoid the floor, as touching it will launch you to the top of the level. Making your way back down can be tricky, as parts of the background will light up and attempt to electrocute our hero. With a little patience, you can make your way through the stage by jumping between moving and expanding platforms. Per usual, the controls in Sonic CD are wonderful, with excellent momentum and the perfect amount of mid-air control. While lesser platformers wouldn't be able to pull off a tricky level like Wacky Workbench, Sonic CD pulls it off with relative ease. Sonic Speed returns in Stardust Speedway. The level is interesting as you're able to move along at a brisk pace for nearly the entire run, bouncing off springs and other speed-enhancing items. This makes it very easy to travel in time, destroy the Eggman machines, and create a good future. Wrapping things up is Metallic Madness. This final zone features plenty of spikes, saws, tough enemies, and some misdirecting level design to put your platforming skills to the test. Upon completion of Sonic CD, you are rewarded with Tails as a playable character. Despite the level structure not really being designed around Tails' flight mechanic, the game works surprisingly well with Tails, and I didn't find his flight broke too many things. The modern version of Sonic CD also has a few more options not offered in the Sega CD original. First, you can choose between the US or Japanese soundtracks. I personally don't have a preference either way. The Japanese soundtrack has a ton of energy, while the US soundtrack does a better job setting the tone for each stage. Both soundtracks have a lot of vocals and are way ahead of their time. I love the fact Sega included both. Finally, the modern version of Sonic CD gives you the option of which spin dash to use. The Sega CD version featured two methods of gaining speed from a standstill. The first was a peel out, allowing Sonic to go faster but left him vulnerable. The second option was a nerfed spin dash, requiring you to charge it before being used. It was slower than the peel out, but as Sonic is a ball, you can smash through enemies. In modern Sonic CD, you can choose to have a traditional spin dash, allowing you instant access to a burst of speed without having to charge it up. Again, I don't have a preference either way, but like the soundtrack, I'm glad there is an option here for fans. Back in 2011, I declared Sonic CD to be my favorite of the classic Sonic titles, but did not really offer a compelling reason why. For this review, I played through the game 4 times to try and figure out exactly why I feel this way. The reason is twofold, and both have to do with the level design. First, there are virtually no bottomless pits anywhere throughout the zones. The only exception I've noticed is the final zone, right before the final boss, so it doesn't really bother me. The lack of bottomless pits encourages you to explore the different levels for secrets, which is something I rather like. The second reason is the level progression. In the other classic Sonic titles, I always felt the levels began to lose their fun factor towards the end of the games, be it bottomless pits, obnoxious enemy placement, or uninspired set pieces. In Sonic CD, I find the final few zones to be every bit as engaging as the beginning of the game. This means every single time I play the game, I play right through to the final showdown with Eggman. I don't find myself losing interest and shutting the game down. Finally, I feel Sonic CD has the best bosses of all the classic games. While the pinball boss is a bit annoying, though incredibly easy with Tails, I like the fact that developers were trying new things. Tidal Tempest requires you to grab all the air bubbles before Eggman is finally exposed. Wacky Workbench requires you to jump along moving platforms to reach Eggman. Stardust Speedway ends with a race against Metal Sonic. Quartz Quadrant has you running on a conveyor belt, avoiding obstacles. The boss encounters just feel significantly more fleshed out than the other titles. Your mileage will of course vary, and I certainly respect the fact everyone has their own thoughts on which classic Sonic game is the best. These are simply my personal opinions and observations. This brings us to our conclusion. Sonic CD is easily one of the best platformers from the 16-bit era of video games, and Sega did a wonderful job preserving classic Sonic while giving it a few modern touches. I love the fact you can choose which soundtrack to experience, as well as fix the spin dash if you find it to be a problem. Adding Tails as a playable character is icing on the cake. From the beautiful graphics, the clever level design, awesome boss battles, and 2 of the greatest game soundtracks of all time, it's tough not to fall in love with Sonic CD.